It's a gorgeous South Florida morning here at the Palm Beach International. Perfect setting to test out the new Cooper Xeon RS3 G1 tires.
It's a pretty brave move to put these tires on straight-up race cars.
The racetrack is the perfect scenario for this particular tire.
All day they were great, super predictable on the breakaway.
The tires, they seem like they have a lot of grip. You'll get a lot of use out of the tires.
For 15 seasons, the Castrol Toyota Racing Series has led the way in New Zealand motorsport. With 170 drivers and 276 races so far, the graduates have made their mark in international motor racing. This is the pathway for the world's young drivers. And this series hits the racetracks of New Zealand for 5 weeks every year on the quest to find the next world champion.
Parker Thompson, Kyle Kirkwood, 1-2, great stop. Green, underway. Green. It's a sweep, back-to-back gap.
Road to Indy, race recap.
The road to Indy's midsummer stop at the undulating Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course is always a turning point in the championship season, and this year's visit was no different. After scoring a crucial win in Toronto to pull out a 25-point lead in the Indy Light standings, Andretti Autosport's Oliver Askew rolled into Mid-Ohio with massive confidence. The speed was there from the get-go for the young American, and he simply steamrolled through every session, winning both poles to set up dominant victories in both races. Askew topped home state star Ryan Norman in the opening race of the doubleheader as Norman advanced from his Row 2 starting spot to finish a strong second ahead of Askew's primary championship challenger, Rinus VeeKay of Juncos Racing. On Sunday, Askew was in great shape starting from the pole. The American stretched away to a convincing victory, his 6th on the season and 3rd in a row. The double wins have extended his lead in the points to 45 over VeeKay heading to Gateway. Sowery was on his game to take 2nd, while VeeKay finished 3rd for the 2nd straight race. In Indy Pro 2000, there is no denying the momentum currently being enjoyed by RP Motorsport USA's Kyle Kirkwood. The American entered the weekend having won 3 of the last 4 races, and he got off to an extremely positive start, topping qualifying for both races, which counted as his 3rd and 4th consecutive poles. Kirkwood managed both starts and restarts to win both Mid-Ohio races quite handily, closing the gap to the championship leader Rasmus Lindh down to just 13 points. Lindh was second to Kirkwood in the first race of the weekend, finishing ahead of Kirkwood's RP Motorsports teammate Ian Rodriguez. In Sunday's run, it was his teammates' turn to shine as Stingray Robb tied his career best result with an inspiring drive to P2. The field for USF 2000 featured 17 drivers, and Pabst Racing unloaded with 4 extremely fast race cars for their stable of drivers, led by the New Zealander Hunter McElrea, who swept both pole positions. At the drop of the green for race 1, Jay Howard driver development pilot Christian Rasmussen went quickly to the lead from his front row starting spot, and he simply drove away from the rest of the field, winning by almost 10 seconds. It was Rasmussen's 2nd straight victory, and he is certainly building the momentum needed to make his second half charge for the title. McElrea became embroiled in a fight with BN Racing's Matt Round-Garrido, but the Englishman could not hold the spot as both McElrea and Colin Kaminsky finally found their way past to finish on the podium in 2nd and 3rd. McElrea came back on Sunday and dominated the action, keeping Rasmussen at bay for all 20 laps. Both drivers clawed back crucial points in the title fight as Ohio's Braden Eves struggled with finishes of 8th and 7th. Eves' lead had dwindled to just 9 points ahead of McElrea with 4 more races to go.
this freight train as now the Lucas starts.
The Indy Pro 2000s presented by Cooper Tires. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we've got 12 cars that will be practicing right now. The Cooper Tires Pro Indy 2000 series. They are on the track.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, on the racetrack right now, the drivers in the Indy Pro 2000 category, essentially double A. That's a double A level for this Road to Indy presented by Cooper Tires. Drivers in the USF 2000 category, the first level, essentially single A. Indy Pro 2000 double A, of course, Indy Lights triple A, just one step away from the big show. 12 drivers set to go here today in what will be a fantastic battle. Always exciting to get back on the oval. And really for the young drivers as part of this Road to Indy program, it's all about trying to get them ready for the next level. We take the drivers in USF 2000. They run the oval at Lucas Oil Raceway during the month of May, the Freedom events, the Carb Night Classic. Last year, actually, we had the USF 2000 cars here, not with us this year. Instead, we have the drivers in this Indy Pro 2000 category. Just such a tremendous program here. This new car, this new Tatis PM18 that we debuted last year. They've got things dialed in on this car. It is lightning quick, and we expect to put some pretty good lap times down here today. We'll talk a little bit about the championship battle because it's a pretty good one right now. We've got some very talented drivers within about 5 positions of each other, 70 points separating the top 5. Rasmus Lint, the young Swedish driver, part of the Swedish invasion, as we call it, with Felix Rosenqvist and, of course, Marcus Ericsson in the NTT IndyCar Series. Kyle Kirkwood, young American driver, last year's USF 2000 champion, the Soul Red Mazda colors. Scholarship from Mazda moving him up to the next level. Mazda, of course, not with us here this year, but the scholarships will continue. And really, that's one of the key components of this Road to Indy, and that's that scholarship. If you're a champion, if you win the championship, you're going to win the money to be able to move to that next level. We've seen drivers like Spencer Pigot start in USF 2000 and just keep winning championships all the way to the NTT IndyCar Series. So drivers on track, their first opportunity here. They'll get things rolling. Rasmus Lint on top for Juncos Racing. They won the championship last year with Rinus VK, who you'll see as well after this session in Indy Lights. Parker Thompson with a brand new team, Able Motorsports. Parker Thompson out of Red Deer, Alberta, Canada. Heavily supported as one of the young Canadians trying to work his way up this program. He's got a number of series he's running this year. He's running in a couple of sports car series. He's running Porsche Cup. Already has a championship to his resume for 2019, having won a Canadian Touring Car Championship. Thompson currently in that second position. Jacob Abel, his teammate in the number 51 out of Kentucky, P3. Daniel Frost from Singapore for Exclusive Autosport, now in 4th. Kyle Kirkwood in the 28, reigning USF 2000 champion in the 5th spot. Artem Petrov will be a very interesting driver to watch here this particular weekend, making his debut in the Road to Indy here on the Indy Pro 2000 level. Driver coming out of some F3 competition, Euro Formula Open in Europe. And again, to think of him coming over here, similar to what Santino Ferrucci did, coming from F2 and jumping into the program over here. You wouldn't expect him maybe to be ultra quick on an oval, but he's picking it up pretty quickly here as well. Top 6 drivers have all topped 140 miles per hour average speed. Moises De La Vera from D-Force Racing now in 7th. Stingray Rob from Juncos Racing in 8th. Nikita Lastishkin from Exclusive Autosport in 9th, and rounding out the top 10, Corey Enders. Again, this session here, the first time these drivers will get on track, and really only one time as well. They'll get this half-hour session. They'll get a ton of laps in, and they're back on the racetrack later on this evening. 6:30 start for their qualifying run. 2 laps on the racetrack. Again, a discipline these young drivers need to pick up, and that's what this is all about. This is educating these drivers for a potential move to the NTT IndyCar Series. We've seen a lot of drivers come through this Indy Pro 2000 category. Before, it was actually called Pro Mazda. Before that, Star Mazda, that kind of level. Marco Andretti, Graham Rahal, James Hinchcliffe, Connor Daly, all drivers that came through the Star Mazda category. Pro Mazda was drivers like, as I said, Spencer Pigot, who have made the move up to the NTT IndyCar program. And then you'll talk to a number of the drivers down in the paddock area, and there are some that absolutely love running on the oval. Others maybe a little more uncomfortable with it. I spoke with Nikita Lastishkin earlier. He's absolutely loving this racetrack. Had a great test here, and Nikita in the number 90, 29 years of age, one of the elder statesmen in the program, but Nikita looking at potentially moving to Indy Lights in 2020.
How old did you say he was?
29 years old.
That's really old, isn't it? I mean,
you hate to say that, though, don't you?
We were talking a while ago during practice about how I have difficulty getting out of bed every morning at over 70, but 29 doesn't seem so bad before a race driver. That's quite an age.
Well, we've seen Nikita come through the F1600 category, and then as well move to the USF 2000 series, then now up into Indy Pro last year. And Nikita's had a couple of really good runs. Actually, 6th place in points now, 114 markers back of Stingray Rob, 170 in total back. The 170 points, 114 back. Nikita's had some really good runs there this year, though, with Exclusive Autosport. His teammate Daniel Frost with a couple of victories. Daniel actually won to watch here this weekend, currently sitting in the 6th spot. They're just dialing these cars in, so we won't put too much weight on how fast they are out of the gate because, again, a lot of these teams may not have the exact data they need. Give them a chance to kind of dial things in. They've got these Cooper tires on, and we'll likely see them put another set on pretty soon, maybe a fresh set. Interesting thing is that we had the test here, Bob, so they're able to bring one carryover set from that test. So no one really going out here with sticker tires to start.
Right.
They'll be on that carryover set to begin the session. And then once they're getting ready to do that qualifying simulation later in the run, we'll see fresh tires go on.
Yep.
Rasmus Lint, though, the driver who's in the hot seat right now, he leads the points by 13. But to be honest, it's interesting because Kyle Kirkwood's kind of been the guy on the roll. Kyle has won 5 of the last 6 races. Was able to sweep the weekend at Road America back in June. Did well in Toronto, had an issue, but was able to come back and win the second race in Toronto. And then at Mid-Ohio, swept the weekend at Mid-Ohio as well. So Rasmus Lint had a really good run. He had a couple of wins in the first 5 races, 6 races. Also was very comfortable, consistent, top 3, top 4, top 5. But it's been this run by Kyle Kirkwood, winning 5 of the last 6 races, that has really tightened things up in the championship.
Very impressive. And a new fast speed just came up on the board.
Moises de Oliveira for D-Force Racing in the number 6, a USF 2000 veteran. Couple starts in Indy Pro last year. Full season here, though, with D-Force. Driver from San Antonio, Texas. Actually born, though, in Mexico. 143.177 miles per hour. Qualifying record, 140.370. That was from a couple of years ago. We're going to see definitely a track record laid down here. 143.177 mile per hour. Again, that's 14 laps in. Let's see what they can do when we get on the racetrack for just that 2-lap run. Rasmus Lint stats in second. Corey Anderson third. So D-Force Racing having drivers first and third now. Parker Thompson fourth and Jacob Abel fifth. Those 2 drivers from Abel Motorsports. Interesting to talk about Parker Thompson. We like to do this pretty much every weekend because Parker has been one of those drivers that really hasn't had the full funding he needed to be able to go to one of the top teams, let's say going to the championship team, and just trying to win a title. He's been kind of piecing things together. Ran for JDC Motorsports in USF 2000. Finally was able to go to Cape Motorsports in his second year in the series. And that really was going to be his best chance to win a championship. He battled it out with Anthony Martin from Australia. They went toe-to-toe all year, and Martin ended up winning the title. And then, of course, he moved on with a scholarship to what was then the Pro Mazda category. Parker then hooked up with Exclusive Autosport, a brand new team. They've got a very successful F1600 program in Canada, winning tons of championships. They were coming into USF 2000. They wanted a driver who could get the job done, help them get all the notes they needed, all the data to be able to be quicker the next year. He won some races for them, battled for the championship as well, but came up just short. Fast forward, rewind to last year. Here's a guy that figured he was going to be on the sidelines again. Exclusive decides to move to the Indy Pro 2000 category. They buy new cars. They have no data. Let's bring Parker Thompson back again. So he's been kind of like a development driver, and he's doing the same thing here this year with Abel Motorsports. Brand new team, clean sheet of paper, no data coming in, and he's been the guy that's been going out there and pounding out the laps to try to get the data for Jacob Abel, who will be back next year. And it's interesting for Parker because I think out of the gate, people thought that he was going to be the guy to win, or at least to beat in the championship. He won both races at the streets of St. Petersburg. I think everybody was just saying this could be the year where he absolutely dominates. We were off for a couple of months. The next race for the drivers in Indy Pro was the Grand Prix of Indianapolis, the road course circuit at IMS, and he just didn't have the pace. He was able to work his way back up to a couple of top 5 finishes, but man, they knew that they were in trouble. He qualified outside the top 10 both races. He's been working hard still. He's got a couple of podiums, 4 podiums in the last 6 races. Parker still in the championship battle, only 48 markers behind Rasmuth Lint. This is going to be a hardcore battle to the end. 5 more races still to go. 1 here, 2 at Portland Bob, 2 at Laguna Seca, and this particular weekend here, 1.5 points. Normally 30 points for a win, 45 points here on the Oval.
Why 1.5 points here?
Simply because it's not a doubleheader. We usually, they want to give essentially 60 points out on a weekend, come to the Oval. And also, let's be real, make sure drivers come to the Oval. If you're in the championship, we need you here at the Oval. They want to have enough cars at the Oval. For me, it's more the concept where, listen, if you want to become an IndyCar driver, you run the ovals.
You got to do the ovals.
You have to learn. You have to be good at it.
Yep.
And I got a chance to interview Santino Ferrucci on IndyCar Radio after he being P1. Amazing how he's taken to the ovals, how much he just loves them. And I think the words from Michael Cannon really kind of rung true. He just tries to stay out of the way and let him do his work because he's impressive out there.
When I first heard the name Ferrucci, I thought, okay, well, that won't be a problem. and he has just been so impressive. Ovals, road courses, street courses. I'm very, very impressed with this kid, and I hope that he stays with it and, does a full season again next year. And if so, I think he's going to be a winner, no question about it.
Well, I think that those of people who maybe followed world motorsports, not just IndyCar, know of some of the transgressions that had happened when he was in F2 and some of the stuff that did happen. Mm-hmm. I've had the fortune of watching Santino since he's been 5 years of age in karting. I remember that little blonde fro out there, and he was amazing. He was following in the footsteps of Sage Karam, who just essentially dominated what was called cadet racing, anywhere between 5 and 9 or 10 years of age. And Santino showed the skills at that point. Mm-hmm. He just had the racecraft down. He was, he'd get into second. He'd push the guy in front of him behind and make that last lap pass. And you say that's not something you can teach, but you can. But there's that instinct for it. Yeah. And just the way he has taken to this reminds me of the way he took to cadet karting when he was, single-digit year of age. So.
Yeah, I have a friend who mentioned the same thing. He saw him run go-karts once, and he's not very tall now. And then he was just barely
True.
to your knees. But he mentioned how nice a kid he was, first of all, and secondly, how impressed he was with his skills.
And again, it's been one of those things. He's only 21 years of age now, so we're talking about maybe 15 years, 14 years that he's been doing this. And again, to see what he's done and as he's moved forward, I will admit I'm surprised by how well he's done this year, how well he's taken to it. As I mentioned, he's 5th in oval points.
Yeah.
His average finish less than 7.
That's incredible.
It's incredible.
Yep.
You don't see that a lot from a young driver coming in and even making mistakes. He also leads, I believe he leads the standings in most laps.
I think you're right, yes.
Which, another thing that we don't normally see out of the young guys coming into the NTT IndyCar Series. Mm-hmm. Moises De Oliveira still on top. His teammate Corey Enders in 3rd, so D-Force Racing has hit on a pretty good setup here now. 143.177 miles per hour for De Oliveira. Artem Petrov for RP Motorsports Racing USA has moved up to 3rd. Another driver I wouldn't expect to be as quick, but then as we know this, we're expecting to see these drivers potentially putting on those fresh tires, doing that qualifying simulation pretty soon. We're about 20 minutes into the session, still about 10 minutes to go. De Oliveira in the number 6, the blue and white cars. You'll see them on track, pretty easy to pick up. Those are the D-Force Racing drivers, both De Oliveira and Corey Enders, residing in Texas. Rasmuth Lint in the white and green. That's the Juncos livery. Very similar to what we saw for Kyle Kaiser at the Indianapolis 500. Artem Petrov in the black and gray cars for RP Motorsport Racing. His teammate Kyle Kirkwood in the Soul Red Mazda colors. Of course, winning that scholarship from Mazda last year. Kirkwood, we shouldn't be surprised, Bob, that he's done so well. As I said, 5 wins in the last 6 races. He's got 7 races where he's finished in the top 2, first or second, out of the 10 we've had so far. The consistency is there, and I say no surprise because he went on that dominant run last year in USF 2000, resetting the single-season victory record, topping J.R. Hildebrand's record that had set for a long time. Kyle, when he gets on a roll, and he did this in karting as well, there's that level of confidence and momentum that he's able to bring into a program. First year, of course, with RP Motorsports, and it just kind of took them to blend. It's an Italian team with a base here in Chicago, here in the U.S., and as soon as they started to blend together and the trust was there going back and forth, we just saw him step up.
Yeah, I think that's the way it is with most drivers and teams. It takes at least a year to get on the same page and get to know who's doing what and how they're doing it. And then when the connection is made, they go on a roll and turn in some very impressive finishes.
I always use the word language. You know, when you can start speaking the language of your engineer, they're giving you certain input. You're trying to give the feedback to them. Once you're speaking the same language, then you can really come up with the solutions. You throw in the wrinkle that they actually don't speak the same language. It's English and Italian, and I'm probably broken English for a number of the guys over at RP Motorsports, but they've really picked things up. And they were strong last year with Harrison Scott as well. They had a number of drivers in the second car, but Harrison Scott, wish he was still here on the road to Indy because he is an unbelievable talent. Won a couple of races last year. But RP Motorsport doing a good job coming out of the gate last year, put a lot of good information, a lot of good data into the computer. And they've come out very strongly here. And Kyle Kirkwood, really the driver with the momentum heading into this final stretch. Rasmus Lint has gone back to P1 in the number 10 for Juncos Racing. Your point leader, 143.514 miles per hour. Just about, let's say maybe about 0.3 of a mile per hour slower is Corey Enders. His teammate, Moises De Oliveira, third. Kyle Kirkwood rolls out a good lap there, 142.184 miles per hour. Petrov, his teammate, in fifth. Parker Thompson in the number 8-6. Stingray Robb in the number 2 and 7th. 8th is Jacob Abel. 9th is Daniel Frost. 10th is Nikita Lostishkin. A rookie driver here for Turn 3 Motorsports, Antoine Comeau in 11th. And Charles Finelli for Fat Boy Racing in the number 83 and 12th. Bob, we talked about Nikita Lostishkin, the Russian-born L.A. resident, being 29 years of age. Charles Finelli, 57 years of age in the number 83.
That's incredible.
He loves running. He's a long career running F2000, Formula 2000 racing in the Northeast on the Eastern Shore. Jumped into the category last couple of years in Indy Pro, and 57 years young in the number 83.
Good for him.
Yeah.
That's incredible. I take my hat off to him for first of all having the physical ability to do so, but that is sometimes overcome by the fact that you just want to get out there and race.
That's it. And to say about Charles as well, he has actually got himself into much better shape this year, more race shape. Lost some weight, got a little stronger, which he needs to for these particular race cars. And I admire, as you do, the commitment to the craft and just going out and wanting to drive fast. This is the place to do it as well. These new cars unbelievably quick. Rasmus Lint, 143.514 miles per hour. The D-Force drivers, Corey Enders and Moises De Oliveira, second and third. Just less than 6 minutes, I believe, remaining, coming around to 5 minutes remaining in the session. So we're likely going to see some sticker tire runs as I quickly look down. Here comes the number 7 of Corey Enders. See if they put fresh rubber on for Enders or if he calls it quits here. I see fresh rubber out for, trying to pick up that team. I think that might be the exclusive Autosport team. Here comes the number 3. Actually, no, that's Antoine Comeau. That's actually a team, Turn 3 Motorsports, out of the Audubon Country Club in Chicago that is owned by Peter Dempsey. Peter, of course, has a decent finish at the Freedom 100. That 4-wide finish where he was able to win coming out of Turn 4. That was an exciting finish for sure. Of course, Peter's
father. He's not racing
anymore. He's not, no. He's been, actually, you know what? He's been doing a lot of engineering, a lot of driver coaching. He started his own team as well at Turn 3. And they have a Radical Cup operation as well. So they run a lot of Radical Cup events. Kind of got into the team ownership. Not surprising. One, of course, of the biggest teams over in Ireland and in the UK is Cliff Dempsey Racing, which is his father.
Right.
And that's the team that runs all of Jeremy Shaw's Team USA scholarship drivers. So team ownership in the bloodline for Peter Dempsey. And we have no doubt that they'll have success. And essentially with Antoine Comeau, this is just a program of dialing things in for 2020.
Mm-hmm.
So time winding down in this session for drivers here in the Indy Pro 2000 category. Again, the second rung of the road to Indy. Impressive so far for the two D-Force Racing drivers, Moises De Oliveira and Corey Enders. Rasmus Lint on top for Juncos Racing, and that will make him very happy again, trying to stop this march forward from Kyle Kirkwood. RP Motorsport Racing driver, champion last year in the USF 2000 category on a run. When you've got that kind of momentum and confidence, you know it's going to be tough. As I said, time winding down here now, just about 3 minutes remaining. Rasmus Lint, P1, Corey Anderson second, Moises De Oliveira third, Kyle Kirkwood fourth. Parker Thompson just laid down his best lap, goes P5. 142.531 miles per hour. Daniel Frost quicker as well. Stingray Robles, his best lap down. These have got to be qualifying simulations, you'd figure. 2.5 minutes remaining. Indy Lights drivers will roll onto the racetrack for their one and only practice session, a 45-minute run for the drivers looking to win that championship. Of course, talking about the scholarships, you win Indy Lights, and you're going to follow in the footsteps of some amazing drivers. Pato Award, of course, winning the championship last year. Kyle Kaiser the year before. Drivers like Ed Jones, Spencer Piggott, Gavi Chavez. Corey Enders has gone to the top by 6/1000ths of a mile per hour. 143.786 miles per hour for Corey Enders, 143.780 miles per hour for Rasmus Lint. Moises De Oliveira still third. Parker Thompson up into the fourth spot, 143 flat, 143 miles per hour for Parker Thompson. Kyle Kirkwood rounding out the Fast Five. They get around here in a hurry. Lap times right around the 31-second mark, 31.297 seconds. We don't usually talk time, do we, Bob, when we're talking about ovals? We just roll them speeds right out.
Yeah, I think that people can understand better how fast they're going when you use
Agreed.
speed instead of time, and yeah, that's the thing we work with.
And you like to just say it out, too. 143.786 miles per hour. These drivers anywhere from 16 to about, as I said, 29 years of age, but probably more like 21, 22.
And, you know, you figure that you run, 70 miles an hour on the interstate, and you're thinking, wow, these guys are going twice as fast as this?
That's it.
I don't know.
Last minute or so, make that last seconds or so. Corey Enders, this is the best we've seen Corey run this year, and the D-Force drivers have definitely hit in a strong setup. Good job for the engineers at D-Force Racing. These guys are liking their cars now. First and third for Corey Enders in the 7 and Moises De Oliveira in the 6. And anytime you come to an oval like this, Bob, you've called a lot of these races, a lot of these weekends. When you can roll off the trailer like that, it's usually going to end up being a pretty positive result come race time.
Yep.
It's hard to find speed if the driver's not comfortable with the car, and if you're not quite there. Always takes some work. Enders, Lint, De Oliveira, Thompson, and Kirkwood. 4 different teams in the top 5. Enders and De Oliveira for D-Force Racing. Rasmus Lint for Juncos. Parker Thompson for Able Motorsports, and Kyle Kirkwood for RP Motorsport USA. So we've got a lot of strong drivers. A lot of strong teams as well. Corey Enders, as the checkered flag flies, will end this session up top. That'll be a very positive result for Corey. Give him some confidence moving into qualifying, which rolls out about 6:30 this evening. Much different conditions, Bob, and that's going to be what these engineers are going to have to deal with. We go from a warmer day now. It's going to cool off, I would expect, pretty significantly over the next 4 hours before these drivers get back on track.
Yeah, it will cool off substantially. The track will be different, and it'll be a whole new ball game for these drivers. But that's something that we will look forward to.
Final full field rundown here for the drivers in the Indy Pro 2000 category, presented by Cooper Tires. Corey Enders with the fast lap. His quick lap, a 143.786 miles per hour. Rasmuth Lynn ends up in second. Moises de Oliveira third. Parker Thompson in fourth spot. Kyle Kirkwood fifth. Jacob Abel in the sixth position. Daniel Frost in seventh. Artem Petrov in eighth. Stingray Robb ninth. Nikita Lastishkin in 10th. Antoine Camo 11th. And Charles Finelli finishing in the 12th position. Once again, Indy Lights drivers will be on track for their one and only practice session about 3 o'clock, about 13 minutes from now. Indy Pro 2000 back on the racetrack for their qualifying runs, those 2-lap qualifying runs at 6:30 this evening.
Road to Indy 101.
Every race weekend, the drivers in the 3 levels of the Road to Indy compete for poles, race wins, and championship glory. The one thing these drivers don't want to think about is a crash and what happens afterwards. Luckily for us, we have the support of the AMR safety team. This weekend, we're going to get a behind-the-scenes look at this specialized unit. All right, we're here with Tim Bachman, the Director of Track Safety with the AMR safety team. Tim, we're standing in front of one of your trucks here. Can you maybe give us a brief overview of what it is that the AMR safety team does?
Well, sure. Hi, Dalton. How you doing?
Thanks for having us.
So we take 16 folks to every IndyCar event, including all the Road to Indy events. Each truck is staffed with a crew leader, a paramedic firefighter, and 2 rescue technicians. This is very similar to what we do as firefighters and paramedics out on the street, but it happens a lot faster. It happens right in front of us. We don't have a 911 call and then a delayed response. We're there in seconds. A lot of times there's a demand to get us off the track and get the driver into a safe position, whether it's off the track or if they're injured, to the hospital. And our goal is to do that within 2 minutes. And that happens a lot faster than what it even happens out on the street when we're doing our normal jobs. So,
what are the bigger challenges that you guys face?
If there's an opportunity to save a life, a driver is seriously injured, we know that we only have a very small window of opportunity to get them out of the car, get them to the hospital, whether it's by helicopter or by ambulance, and do that in as short a time as possible, where they can actually truly have surgery and take care of what's going on with the serious injury. We can have, in these cars, we can have 140, 160 mile an hour hit and have drivers walk out and not have an injury. And it's truly from the way the cars are designed and been built and where we've gotten today with technology.
Can you talk about maybe some of the differences between the feeder series and the IndyCar, minor adjustments you have to make when you approach a scene?
Very little as far as what's going on in the driver cockpit, and I think that's by purpose. You know, I think that the USF 2000s and the Pro 2000s and even Indy Lights, you know, they want things to transfer as the drivers move up the ladder. Yep. So the inside, the steering wheel, how it comes off, it's all the same. Some of the plugs are differently. They just changed the plug-in on the drivers in the Indy car, so they're plugging in at their hip instead of up here, so their wires are up and out of the way. We need to know, if we need to get them out, that we need to either cut those wires or unplug them. They get taped during races so they don't get unplugged accidentally, and we understand that. You know, we have seen a lot of drivers come through the series, and for the most part, I think they have an appreciation to see a familiar face, especially when it's a rough time, and know that we've got the situation under control. We've got a system that goes beyond our initial response, but all the way to the infield care center, to the trauma center, and even after they've had their initial care, getting them back to Indianapolis or back to their hometown and making sure that the proper care is delivered and get them back on their feet as quickly as possible.
Well, I can certainly tell you from the driver's standpoint, we appreciate everything that you guys do here with the AMR safety team. So thank you very much for this overview of what it is that you guys do at the track, and hopefully I won't see you on track.
Well, hopefully you'll have a good time. We'll all get to watch a good race. That's how it works.
Exactly.
So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Look at this freight train as now the Lucas dives down to the inside. 3 wide through turn 4. Got the Sky Gift.
Hi, my name is Oliver Askew. I'm from Jupiter, Florida, and I drive the number 28 Index and Best car for Andretti Autosport. I'm from Jupiter, Florida. I was born in Melbourne, Florida, but moved to Jupiter when I was about 3 years old. So for as long as I can remember, I've lived in North Palm Beach area. That's where I've grown up, and that's where I'm based now. I'm back and forth to Indianapolis. I'm spending more time in Indianapolis now this summer. Like most other drivers, my life is completely dedicated to motorsport, and it has been since I was 12 or 13 years old when I was homeschooled and racing almost every weekend. When I do have some time off, I do like to go home and be centered around family and the beach. And when we do get waves, and mostly in the wintertime, I do go surfing with my friend Kyle Kirkwood for the most of the time. So I'd love to get back in the water. That's where I can kind of relax and unwind and not think about racing so much. So that would be nice. That if I had to choose, that's what I'd go do. But unfortunately, it's not up to me. It's up to Mother Nature. So I play guitar. I train a lot every day. Obviously, these cars are very physical, so I try to train as much as I can to not get tired in the car, because when you get tired, then you start to make mistakes and you lose lap time. So my goal is to race an Indy car, and I think I have to develop myself as an athlete to make it to that goal. Thanks for watching. You can follow me more on the Road to Indy TV app and on my social media handles on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.
Oh, those Mid-Ohio twists and turns. Maybe it's the placement in the schedule, or maybe it's the ever-changing track conditions. But this year is not the first time that one of the three championships has taken an interesting turn. In Indy Lights, what looked like a season-long slugfest between a pair of rivals has turned into a comfortable lead for Askew. When the green flag came out to start the Freedom 100 at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, Askew trailed Rinus VeeKay by a single point. But 4 wins, including the last 3 in a row, means the 2016 USF 2000 champion heads to the final oval race of the year with a comfortable 45-point lead. Kyle Kirkwood, who won 3 times at Mid-Ohio last year on the way to the USF 2000 championship, took 2 more Buckeye State trips to victory lane, his 4th and 5th wins in the last 6 races. Rasmus Lind had a 45-point championship lead as the series left Indianapolis. Now the Swede has only 13 points in hand with 5 races remaining. 44, 35, and 9. 3 numbers that Braden Eaves will have a full month to contemplate before the series is back in action at the Portland International Raceway in a month's time. 44 was the Cape Motorsport rookie's lead after the month of May came to a close. 33 is how many more points Hunter McElrea has scored since. 9 is the lead he has with 4 races remaining.
This great drain as now the Lucas dives down to the inside. 3 wide through turn 4. Something's gotta give.
Road to Indy, beyond the grid.
Hey everybody, my name is Parker Thompson, professional tire guy and semi-professional race car driver of the number 8 Able Motorsports Indy Pro car. So I grew up in Red Deer, Alberta, which is, a lot of people don't know, it's right in between Calgary and Edmonton, which are 2 very well-known cities in Alberta. Grew up in a great place. I still call Red Deer home when I'm not racing, so it's nice to get back there in the off-season, and it's where my family's from. Growing up through high school and middle school, I was on the road so much that honestly I didn't get back home much. In grade 9, I moved to Italy by myself to compete in go-karts over there for the full course of 12 months. So I lost touch with a lot of friends. I only kept a few close ones. I still keep in touch with them today. But it wasn't like I grew up per se in Red Deer. I was on the road a lot with the Road to Indy and other race organizations. Honestly, at the moment, I don't really have time for hobbies. I've raced, at the end of this year, I'll race over 23 race weekends. I'm in 4 different championships, 4 different cars. It's pretty insane this year. I've only had 1 weekend off, and that was just after Toronto. So definitely pretty busy. Hopefully in the off season, I remember what my hobbies are and I can go back to them. I would say if I was going to take a day off from racing, I'd probably go take up a round of golf. In high school, I was actually fairly decent, but now being a couple years graduated, I've kind of lost my touch. I don't play very much, and I don't usually play with my clubs because I'm always on the road just showing up at some random golf course. So I'm lucky to shoot under 100 now, but back in high school, I was not too bad. You can follow me on social media on Twitter and Instagram at Parker T Racing and on Facebook at Parker Thompson Racing.
It's a gorgeous South Florida morning here at the Palm Beach International. Perfect setting to test out the new Cooper Xeon RS3 G1 tires.
Pretty brave move to put these tires on straight-up race cars.
The race truck is the perfect scenario for this particular tire.
All day they were great, super predictable on the breakaway.
The tires, they seem like they have a lot of grip. You'll get a lot of use out of the tires.
Something going on all the time for any kind of race fan, and besides that, there's a lot of, as you mentioned, bands and that type of thing. So it's a day of total entertainment here at the Raceway.
Well, Bob, the Bob Marino Group, I mean, they are dedicated to making this the premier event in the United States. I mean, you know, Frank and Bob, I mean, the whole family are involved in this great event. And, you know, with the Worldwide Technologies coming on board this 2019 season, you know, we can expect just bigger and bigger things here at Worldwide Technology Raceway.
Yeah, when I saw the race last year, I thought, wow, they've got a great crowd. It's a great race, and this is definitely going to be a star on the series from now on, and I think we're headed there tomorrow for sure.
Yeah, I think right now we are the third largest crowd that IndyCar draws.
Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think, of course, Indianapolis is number one.
Sure.
And Long Beach.
Oh, yeah.
I think they are number two, and then Gateway is number three.
Wow, that's great.
Well, I believe the Indy Lights are making an appearance out on the 1.25-mile oval, and they will be up for practice. They'll be having a 45-minute practice session.
Iowa Speedway this year. That's normally been essentially the second of the three oval races for drivers in Indy Lights. So I like that we're back on the oval. I like to see who is going to be good here. Knowing, of course, last year Rinus VeeKay was able to win in the Indy Pro 2000 class. But the momentum right now, I think, all on the side of Oliver Askew. He's won a number of races, 3 in a row through Toronto and Mid-Ohio, and coming here to a track where I think the Andretti Autosport team is going to be good.
Lots of stuff to talk about. We're going to talk about that race here 1 year ago, the championship picture with Oliver Askew, our points leader, as well as some changes in the paddock right now for the Indy Lights Series presented by Cooper Tires. But first, I want to welcome in the third member of our broadcast crew today down on pit lane. He'll have the television coverage on NBC Gold later this weekend. Jake Query, welcome back to St. Louis. I know you spent a couple years working here a few years ago. Always good to be back in the St. Louis area for some racing on what is already a pretty gorgeous weekend here in the Midwest.
I did indeed, Dick. As a matter of fact, there are only a handful, if you will, of places that I could call home at different periods of my life. St. Louis was one of them, so it's good to be back here in the gateway to the West. I'm standing in Oliver Askew's pit here along Pit Road. It would be seemingly the place to be because, as you guys touched on, this is a driver that is now essentially entering turn 4 of trying to secure himself this Indy Lights championship. He, of course, already had the test that went very, very well at Portland for Chip Ganassi's team in terms of the NTT IndyCar Series. He has brought that number 28 Index Invest machine here onto pit road. They'll take a look over it, and it'll be interesting to find out over the course of the weekend just the mindset of Oliver Askew. Is it one, as is always the case with a racer, of I'm going for it and going for a 4th straight win, or does a little bit of more of a conservative nature come into play if he finds himself, let's say, side by side or involved in traffic? Because points is right now what he has a major advantage in. We shall watch that, one of the storylines over the course of the weekend. It's a great day here in the St. Louis area. 85 degrees is the ambient temperature now. This is an area of the country that typically can be very, very humid, and there certainly is some moisture and thickness in the air today, but not near what we typically are used to for this time of year in St. Louis. So might have caught a break a little bit this weekend in terms of that average track temperature, 114 degrees. The warmest area of that would be in the areas between turns 1 and 2, but not much cloud cover, so pretty much a sun-drenched track here as everybody gets set in this practice session, Nick, in the Indy Lights.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I remember when we were here a year ago, Rob, it was extremely warm, no breeze, and it kind of sucked the life out of you. The good news is the forecast looks absolutely fantastic all weekend long here in the St. Louis area, and as Jake talked about, a nice little breeze, cooling off the race fans that have made their way here to the grandstands at Worldwide Technology Raceway.
Not surprising, when I was talking to John Bomarito last night at FanFest down at the St. Louis Cardinals game, he was extremely excited because the two things you don't want when you're here at Gateway, number one is the rain, and number two is stifling temperatures and humidity. Already great ticket sales, and to be able to have what's going to be probably a perfect Saturday evening, thinking about more walk-up people coming in just to get the race and check it out, because it's going to be such a beautiful evening.
This, of course, the only practice session for these Indy Lights drivers here on the weekend. It's a 45-minute session for these drivers to get out on the racetrack, turn as many laps as their hearts content. They'll go qualifying a little bit later this afternoon, 7:30 Central Time, 8 o'clock Eastern Time. We'll have live coverage of Indy Lights qualifying. As we mentioned, just 5 races to go in this championship. Few extra points on the line as well, Rob, with this being an oval event. So for those drivers like Rinus VeeKay, Ryan Norman, Toby Sowery, who are clinging to the chances of winning this championship, if you're going to run down Oliver Askew, this is the weekend where it absolutely has to start with a few extra points on the line.
I think knowing that Askew is going to be strong here, of course, the Andretti drivers were very quick last year. Ryan Norman, of course, getting the win, a great battle with his teammate Colton Herta. But anything can happen on an oval, whether it's a minor mistake, trying to go around potentially lap traffic. All it takes, with 45 points up for grabs, an issue potentially for Askew and a good run for Rinus VeeKay. He's only 45 points back. We saw what happened at Pocono with Alexander Rossi. He was very close to Joseph Newgarden. That's, of course, extended now after the issue. That could happen here as well. 45 points up for grabs, so a run for Askew, I think, could be a little more conservative. If he finishes third, I don't think he's going to be upset.
Oliver Askew making his way out of turn number 4 in car 28. That Index Invest Dallara down the front straightaway across the start-finish line. Right now, he is 5th fastest, very early in this practice session. But, Rob, what can you say about the run that he has been on? 3 straight wins, and perhaps even more importantly than the 3 straight wins, the podiums. 10 out of the last 11 races, 12 all told in this 13-round championship. 11 out of 13 so far is just incredible. This young man doesn't make a lot of mistakes, and that's why he finds himself with a 45-point lead.
And the only non-top 5 finish was the contact between he and Rinus VeeKay in the opening of the second race at St. Petersburg. Since then, he's been on a roll. I just think, again, any of these drivers on the road to Indy, it's all about that confidence. Once they get, especially as a rookie, he's only 4 years out of karting. 2 years ago, rather, he was a USF 2000 champion. Last year, a bit of a rough run with Cape Motorsports and Indy Pro 2000. And then here he is now as a rookie, and he's come out of the box so well, and then gets on this run. Confidence, momentum, believing in his team, and believing he can win any race. We saw it at Mid-Ohio. They were so good rolling off the trailer, they didn't have to use that fresh set of tires for the final qualifying for race 2. He ends up being the only driver in the entire grid starting on fresh rubber for race 2 at Mid-Ohio.
6 wins this year for the young man out of Jupiter, Florida, driving for the legendary Michael Andretti, and those 6 wins, Rob, coming on vastly different racetracks. The last 3, sweeping the Mid-Ohio weekend on the natural terrain road course, picked up a win on the streets of Toronto. He won the Freedom 100. Yeah. So you got large oval, you got a road course, you got a street circuit. Only thing left is the one short track that we go to. So what an opportunity for him to really put a stranglehold on this championship. He can certainly do that this weekend and show all those IndyCar owners, hey, I can win, be fast anywhere we go.
And we'll talk more about this team afterwards, but I think the only kind of thing that says, will he be able to do it, was the fact that we had that test last week, and it was the two drivers from HMD Motorsports, the former BN Racing, who were first and second, Toby Sowery and David Malukas, who have now gone to P1 and P2 on the chart.
Yep, that's going to be a fascinating storyline that we're going to talk a little bit about later in this show. Meanwhile, let's go back to pit lane, check in once again with Jake Query.
Interesting note that Rob just touched on when you talk about Toby Sowery and David Malukas. Those are two of the machines that were out there running right now, kind of in partnership with someone else. For example, Lucas Cole and now Oliver Askew are running basically nose to tail. Now, this is significant, Nick, because of the fact that we talked about at the beginning of this session right away, and really probably not necessarily, maybe it was by design, but Oliver Askew and as well Robert McGinnis went out and found themselves nearly a quarter of a lap spaced from any other car. Now, a couple of other cars went out and were working essentially in traffic side by side. Because there's only the one session before qualifying, you probably would like to do a couple of different things. Spend part of the session finding out how your car is in traffic, because on one of these smaller ovals, of course, it is virtually impossible at the outset of a race or off a restart to run laps without someone right beside you, and you certainly want to have a feel for how your car is going to respond, or for that matter for the team, how the driver is going to respond to that, as we call it, dirty air field. The other thing that you want to do in this session, because it's the only session before qualifying, is find yourself time, as Oliver Askew now and Lucas Cole are doing, of getting out there laps on your own and simulating the conditions that you're going to find and set your car up for the qualifying trim as well. It's two totally different setups and feels for the car, essentially, when you're trying to just find speed in a qualifying effort, and then, of course, finding speed in a race situation. So this is a pretty important session to try to find a couple of different things for these cars.
And Rob, based on what we've seen high above the front straightaway in terms of race running or qualifying strategy, qualifying trim, certainly appears like early on drivers are focused on just getting the balance of those race cars correct, because as Jake pointed out, we saw the HMD Motorsports cars, saw some of the Andretti Autosports cars, Robert McGinnis, Ryan Norman running in traffic early on. Very important. It looks like that's the strategy right now early on for these teams.
You've got to get the balance right when you're in that pack racing, of course, and we're going to see that for sure throughout the race on Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening. I saw Robert McGinnis out there in the 27. He tucked inside of Toby Sowery, and we're just trying to get a feel for where they can run on the racetrack. Now, if we look back to last year, of course, our good friends at Team Cooper Tire posted up the video of the last couple laps from last year's race. Of course, your call and Jake Query's call of that unbelievable battle between Ryan Norman and Colton Herta. You can go too wide here at this racetrack for sure. There's going to be two lanes, but for these drivers, especially a rookie like Robert McGinnis, he's going to want to get a good feel for the way the car handles when you don't have that air on the front wing.
It was an absolutely thrilling race 1 year ago that saw Colton Herta and his teammate Ryan Norman duel over the last 15 or 20 laps. Did get a chance to go back and watch that coming into this week and watch Ryan Norman use every inch of the racetrack, try that outside line lap after lap after lap, and then finally, Colton Herta left the bottom opened the door for Ryan Norman, got alongside, and with under 5 or 6 laps to go, made the pass to ultimately secure the big win here in the St. Louis area. It was a fantastic race, and it showed a year ago, Rob, that boy, you give these, even though the field size is a little bit smaller, some of these teams and some of these drivers can have nearly identical setups, and it can put on some great racing. And what a big win that was for Ryan Norman to propel him into this season.
I've always said that all it takes is two drivers on a racetrack and you'll be on the edge of your seat, as long as the battle is that good. And I actually spoke a little bit with Ryan last night at the hotel, and number one, he talked about the fact that in watching that video again, it was unbelievable how close they were running, how Colton didn't lose a wing at one point, how they didn't potentially touch and cut a tire. The other thing I said to Ryan, of course, he's gone on to win this year at Road America. First time in his Road to Indy career, he's the defending race winner coming into an event weekend, which I think brings a lot of confidence for him, too.
Yeah, you mentioned the side-by-side racing was fascinating because it wasn't down in turns 3 and 4 as much as it was down in turns 1 and 2, the tighter portion of the racetrack where, conventional wisdom would think that's going to be harder to go side-by-side. Those two put it awfully close to side-by-side, wheel-to-wheel action, and you mentioned a lot of near misses, but ultimately respected each other as teammates and put on a fantastic show for for these fans. And I think if last year's race was any indication, we could be in store for a good race again this year.
It was the run out of 4, and then they'd come in and go right down to the bottom of the racetrack, down to the bottom, and then you'd see for a while Colton tried to go a little bit higher, and then at one point, as soon as Ryan started to move up, Colton went down the inside and took that lower groove, the run we saw, of course, for Joseph Newgarden going by Simon Pagenaud a couple of years ago, and it was just the way those two worked each other. High side, low side, just trying to make the car stick, finally getting a good run down the back straight, like you said, for Ryan Norman. It was thrilling racing. I was telling Ryan that all of us down on pit lane just kept kind of grimacing and like holding our heads as it was happening. Of course, I've got you and Jake giving the play-by-play into my headset. It was edge of your seat stuff for sure. We're going to see it again for sure here, and even the championship implications are even, I think, heightened because Pato O'Ward really wasn't in the battle last year.
Yep. So it's going to be interesting when we go racing tomorrow in the Indy Light Series presented by Cooper Tires. Right now on the timing and scoring charts, 13 minutes into this 45-minute practice session, it is Toby Sowery at P1 in car number 2. David Malukas in car 79 is second fastest. Both of those drivers have turned laps at excess of 159 miles per hour. Renus VK is third quick. Oliver Askew is fourth. Robert McGinnis is fifth. Ryan Norman is sixth. Dalton Kellett is seventh. And Lucas Cole is eighth. And Rob, one of the storylines coming into this weekend is a bit of a shakeup in the paddock, and it's a shakeup that already looks like it's proving dividends for the new HMD Motorsports with Team Pelfrey in terms of Toby Sowery's partnership. The 2 and the 79 for Sowery and Malukas. A little bit of a shakeup there in that organization.
Yeah, I think the word I'm trying to use with the Road to Indy Inside is more like a restructuring to a certain extent, right? The ownership group essentially the same. That was BN Racing for the last couple of years. They started in USF 2000. Last year, they bought a couple of the PM18 Tatis cars for Indy Pro, and of course, Sowery and Malukas both finishing first and second at both Road America races last year. They moved BN Racing up into Indy Lights this year as a rookie team. They got one car. They get another car from Team Pelfrey for Sowery. It was BN Racing for the start of the season. Let's call it a restructuring because essentially what they've done is they've hired essentially a new team manager. They've moved the team to Brownsburg, and we're talking about John Comiskey. He had John Comiskey racing in USF 2000 a couple of years ago, but I think more importantly, you're talking about a guy who's been a team manager at Ganassi. He's been a mechanic for Team Penske. John Comiskey's running this new operation. They brought in Jeff Fickling at Road America as well. He's going to take care of a lot of driver recruitment and working with the team. They've brought a lot of new personnel. They've worked on those cars. They've tried to raise the game for what was BN Racing and is now HMD Motorsports. This is essentially, it's rebadged, but it's a brand new team to a certain extent with the same equipment. But man, so good at the last test. They could be the spoiler here this weekend.
And when you have a restructuring, what a positive side it is to see the first time you're out on the racetrack. As you mentioned, really good test session, but here now in competitive action, it is clear that Toby Sowery and David Malukas right off the truck look a lot more competitive than they've been at times this year. Sowery has been pretty strong just about everywhere. Malukas has had, it's been a learning experience for him in that car number 79, but both of those drivers at any given point of the season, Rob, have been knocking on the door for race wins. Sowery has 4 podium finishes. 3 of those 4 have been runner-up runs, so he has been right there. David Malukas had a 3rd-place finish earlier this season at Circuit of the Americas down in Austin, so both of those drivers have been close at times, and I'm sure the restructuring in mind is to get one of those drivers into victory lane before the season is over.
At FanFest last night, I talked to Toby, and we talked about the test, and he just said the car is just so good right now. Of course, he's learning and talking to John Comiskey. You know, John's a pretty quiet, kind of reserved guy, not a real, not a lot of humor, not a lot. He's focused on winning races. That's all he wants to do is win. And Toby, I think, is going to have to learn a bit of what John needs, and of course, working with Jeff Fickling as well. But he just said in the test, the car felt so good. There was so much confidence in the car, so much trust. And I think when you look at David and Toby, I'd love to see them both back. You know, Malukas will be back with the team. Mm-hmm. I think we're going to see Toby back because this is one of these deals, I think, where Toby Sowery is kind of the mentor for David Malukas. Toby's got so much more experience. He's 3 or 4 years older. He's learning more about racing here right now. And when you look at the top 5 in points, 6 wins for Askew after that 3-win run. 3 wins for Renus VK, a win for Ryan Norman, and a win for Robert McGinnis. In that top 5, the next guy you have to expect is going to break that goose egg is going to be Toby Sowry.
Yeah, there's no doubt that both those drivers have awful strong, and they've been doing a lot of learning throughout the course of this year because it takes a lot to compete with the Andretti Autosports and the Juncos Racings of the world who have been competing in Indy Lights for a long, long time. So it's going to be impressive so far and interesting to see how that HMD Motorsports organization does here over the last 5 races of this season. 27 minutes to go here in practice. It's still Sowry, Malukas, and VK, the top 3. Let's go to pit lane for an interview with Jake Query.
You know, I should probably be singing. It would be 3 weeks late for me to sing happy birthday, but Corey Enders, who just had the fastest session here in the Indy Pro 2000s, your birthday was August 4th. You're now a 22-year-old man, but this was a really good session. Let's begin with that. Take me through this particular track, Corey, and what it was that clearly you found to your liking.
You know, I'd never been here before the test a couple weeks ago, and I knew coming into an oval that I wasn't the fondest driver of ovals since I'd only driven Iowa and Lucas Oil. This track in particular kind of called my name because of the high-speed corners, the lots of banking, and just one of my talents in a car is to be able to carry a lot of speed through a corner. So it just kind of spoke to me in that sense, just keep the power down, go to power early, and carry a lot of entry speed in. It just made perfect sense, and I think knowing how to set up a car to that direction like my team does really helped a lot. So this is our first P1 in anything in this series, and we're hoping to take home a pole.
When you talk about the corners and finding speed in the corners here, it's 4 corners here at Gateway. How different are all 4 of them, or are they?
So the 4 different corners, they are quite different. So we have the one that it's a longer corner with less banking. With more banking, and then we have the shorter corner with less banking. So turns 1 and 2 is normally where I struggle the most, which is the first 2 corners after the checkered flag. You have to do it. You have to do a downshift there, so there's a little bit lower minimum speed, and you have to get the power quite early, and it tends to understeer up towards the wall. For turns 3 and 4, it's almost flat. There's this very small lift, but it's 6th gear and then back to power immediately. So the main difference is just speed. There's a downshift in one of the corners.
So you were born in New York. You reside in Texas. Are you a New Yorker, a Texan, or a New York Texan?
I'm a Nexan.
I like that. That's perfect, right?
Yeah, so I don't know, New Yorkers are very proud like Texans, but being born in New York, I like to call myself a New Yorker. But obviously you live in Texas long enough, the pride starts to get into you a little bit, and I like to call myself a Texan as well. So.
Things are starting to come together for you here in your first year in this series. Realistically, how far in do you have to get before you have a true feeling for the acclimation of the car, the balance, the changes, where you can say to yourself, now I feel comfortable giving the feedback, knowing what this car needs?
I think one year in this car is enough time for the whole team and the drivers to learn enough about the car to where we feel like we can point the car in the right direction. I'm planning on doing another series or another year of Indy Pro 2000 next year, and the team is doing a lot of development in the off season to come. So I think we're going to be much more well prepared next year to shoot for the championship win.
We're talking with Corey Enders as debris in turn number 1 has brought out the caution here in this Indy Lights practice session. Corey, we now go to Portland after this. I know obviously your eyes are on this weekend, but the reality is things are coming together nicely for you because that's a track where you've had some success. You know Portland well.
Right. Yeah, so Portland is actually a great track. We've been using R-Factor and using the simulator quite a bit to practice that track. And R-Factor recently introduced the Indy Pro 2000, so we have a lot of experience with that track on the simulator and in person. So I think we're feeling very confident for there. Laguna Seca as well is another track we're feeling very confident at.
As you work your way up through the road to Indy, here you go, your marketing campaign, you get a picture of yourself, and then underneath it you put next in line. Huh? How about that, huh? Yeah.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, see, there you go.
I think you're onto something there. I think I have to do that.
You have the trademark rights to it, all right? You just go out and copyright that bad boy and let me know how it goes.
I'll put your name under it.
I appreciate it. That's Corey Enders, guys.
Good stuff, Jake. No doubt about it. Corey Enders, you just, Rob, got done calling that practice session for the Indy Pro 2000 series. Awful impressed with that young man. First time here, and to be P1, that's a big mark for him.
I'll give props to both Corey and the team as well, because Moises de Oliveira, his teammate, was P3. So the D-Force team, as Corey said, being able to set a car up nicely to be able to roll corner speed, and that's what this track's all about, as he said. Especially, it's tough to get into that corner and then to be able to get down, because the way these gearboxes and the electronics work, you can do a no-lift shift essentially, and it's just got that throttle cutoff when they're coming into the corner, but you have to have the speed down to where it needs to be. He said it's a lower minimum speed rolling into one, and the car's going to want to kind of shoot up on you. I'm really happy to see Corey have a good run early on, especially to start this run to Portland, to Laguna Seca, a couple of tracks that he believes he's going to be good at. If he can get himself a win here or even a podium finish, I think would be great for him.
Again, the caution out for a little bit of debris cleanup in turn number 1. See one of the AMR IndyCar safety trucks pulling off the racetrack in turn 2. So it looks like we should be going back to green here momentarily. But how about it? I mean, whether it's Corey Enders, who's never been here before, awful quick, in the IndyCar session, we just saw Santino Ferrucci and Marcus Ericsson go P1 and P2. Guys that, a lot of years racing over in Europe, not as much on ovals here in America. How impressive is that? And then now the trend continues here in Indy Lights with the HMD Motorsports drivers, Sowery and Malukas at the top of the charts, while guys like Ryan Norman, Dalton Kellett have some experience here. So far today, whether it's IndyCar, Indy Lights, or Indy Pro 2000, experience hasn't mattered much.
I don't know if we make the big jump because you can go back to 2015. It was actually Jeff Fickling at Carlin Racing.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And they were unbelievably quick. I believe Max Chilton won at Iowa Speedway that year in a Carlin car, which with engineering from Jeff Fickling. Toby Sowery and David Malukas, that HMD team is, again, from that test, very good. But even Toby, when I talked to him, said, but it was just a test. You're never sure whether or not it's going to transition to a race weekend. You'll get the IndyCar rubber down, things change a little bit. But not only are they good, they're a full mile per hour good. 159.460 miles per hour for Sowery, 159.314 mile per hour for David Malukas. Renus VK, a full mile per hour back. And, of course, he and Askew separated by just 0.02 of a mile per hour.
Yeah, and you mentioned, I mean, it is one thing to feel really good about a test session, but when you're in the position that the HMD Motorsports squad is, where, hey, there's a lot of learning to do in this first year of going full-time Indy Lights competition, Juncos Racing, they've got some data of racing here before. So does Bellardi. So does Andretti Autosport, obviously, with their drivers dueling for the win here a year ago. So sure, test sessions can go well, but you always worry about showing up at the racetrack and knowing, hey, do those teams have something in their notebook from a year or two ago that they're going to roll off the truck fast. So this has to be a major boost in confidence. And as you mentioned, it's not just by a little bit. It's a full mile an hour faster than the entire field. That's huge.
And just remember, we're only halfway past here. These drivers, all from that test they had a couple of weeks ago, they were able to bring one set of tires. That's the carryover set of tires that they'll start this session with. I don't know if we've seen anybody do a qualifying simulation yet. I'll try to look at it. Of course, we've got the guys on pit lane. Jake will be able to see whether or not they've put on new rubber yet. That's when we're going to see good speeds, but this is more what we're probably going to see in the race. Even though it's later on tomorrow afternoon, more what you're going to see in race trim as opposed to qualifying trim.
Yep, so it's Toby Sowery and that bright yellow number 2, Gap-Gar Rich Energy, the sponsorship on that machine, and David Malukas and that red, silver, and black number 79 HMD Trucking, the sponsorship on that car, the fastest so far here at Worldwide Technology Raceway. Just outside of the St. Louis area. Cool thing, Rob, is these drivers, for fans that maybe want to get a chance to meet these future IndyCar stars, as we talked about last year, seeing Ryan Norman duel with Colton Herta. What has Colton Herta done since? Well, he's gone and won an IndyCar race and is maybe the hottest prospect in the paddock right now. Lots of opportunities for race fans that make their way out to WWT Raceway to get a chance to meet and get up close and personal with not only the drivers in Indy Lights, but in Indy Pro 2000 as well.
Yeah, our autograph session will be later on, or rather tomorrow after they actually run. 5:15 to 5:45 tomorrow afternoon will be the autograph session for both Indy Lights and Indy Pro 2000. I've got a couple of Q&As I'm going to be doing, one here at 4:30. I'm actually going to have Corey Enders and Moises De Oliveira from D-Force Racing. That's 4:30 at the Cooper Tire Stage. And tomorrow right at noon, we're going to have the HMD drivers.
You planned that, didn't you? You said only the fast guys. That's all I want.
I'll let you know what, I had a chat with Diane Swintel. She's lined up some pretty good talent right now. Essentially first and third in our practice session and first and second right now. David Malukas and Toby Sowery from HMD Motorsports joining me at 12 o'clock tomorrow afternoon at the Cooper Tire Stage. Yeah, those come to talk to these guys here. It's Q&A. I'll ask a number of questions, but we'll open it up to the crowd as well. We got some hats to give away. The Q&A section is tomorrow at the Cooper Tire Stage. are going to be good ones. We got some good guys.
You're going to have a lot of people at those Q&As, too.
So.
I mean, you saw the crowds here last year and the year before since Open Wheel Racing returned to WWT Raceway. The fans have really embraced this event. I thought it was really cool. Saw NASCAR driver Kenny Wallace send out a tweet. I wasn't aware of this. He said that a lot of local dirt tracks have postponed and canceled their races for this Saturday night because they know it's going to be tough to compete because there's a lot of race fans that want to come out here to WWT Raceway. So it is just fantastic the way this community and this area has embraced this event, and it's just got a big feel to it. It did last year, massive crowds, and that's why I think you're going to have a lot of people at those Q&As and autograph sessions.
Well, I look forward to it. And we've got a good cross-section, too. We've got the K&N drivers here, so you got some stock car fans here, too.
What a cool add to the show that's going to be tomorrow night as well.
Yeah, I'm going to check it out because there's one driver in particular I've been watching since his karting days, and that's Jagger Jones. And, of course, the grandson for Parnelli Jones and the son of P.J. Jones, watching him get rolling in a stock car career. I watched Jagger do a lot of kart racing as he kind of was coming up through the ranks, and I'm excited to see what Jagger's able to do here this weekend as well. Just a great day of racing. So much action jammed into tomorrow afternoon. In fact, the interesting thing, and I'll bring this back up, it kind of feels weird because normally we don't start one of these weekends so later on in the day. I was kind of feeling like it was the morning still. This is pretty much the time they're going to race tomorrow. I believe their start time is 3:15 local. We're here at 3:27. So these are very similar to the conditions we're going to be racing in tomorrow.
I did the math for if you buy a ticket tomorrow, you're going to see 600 plus miles of racing across the four races that you're going to see with the Indy Pro 2000, Indy Lights, the NASCAR K&N Series, and then, of course, the main event being the NTT IndyCar Series.
And the future stars.
Yeah.
Not only of the NTT IndyCar Series, of course, the Road to Indy continues to move drivers and graduate them into IndyCar, but also with the K&N drivers, Haley Deegan, you name it, Jagger Jones. These are drivers you're going to see moving into the NASCAR program, too.
It's quite a weekend, no doubt about it. 16 minutes to go in this practice session. Jake Query, it is still the HMD Motorsports drivers of Sowery and Malukas at the top of the charts.
Toby Sowery actually brings his car in. Now, he and Ritas VK just went back out, essentially, if you will, on that last stint and did so on scuffed tires. So Ritas VK, I believe, the last car out on the track right now, as we see Ryan Norman, Robert McGinnis working their way towards pit road. David Malukas, Lucas Cole, Toby Sowery, and as well Dalton Kellett. So that means Oliver Askew is out as well. But what we have yet to see, Rob Houghton touched on it, and now I think is when we see it, Rob, and that is those sticker Cooper tires going on and everybody finding out exactly what they can get here on some fresh grip with these tires. As a matter of fact, when Renus VK went out, and it's the car that he is out, that's him that you hear going by right now, and then Oliver Askew has pulled on to pit road here. But when Renus VK went out, I assumed they were on sticker tires because they were very lightly scuffed. But he's going ahead and scuffing in those Cooper tires, will come in, and presumably then, along with everyone else, will do with this last dash, if you will, on new tires. Now, for a brief second there, one of the other things that came into play here was the track might have had just a split second or so to cool off just a little bit because the sun dipped behind the one large cloud that happens to be up in the sky, and that cooled things off for just a moment there. But once that cloud moved out of the way, we're right back to where we were at the outset of this session, and that's track temperatures about 115 degrees, Nick.
Yeah, Jake, I know you couldn't see it, but you had dialed in the strategy perfectly for Renus VK as he went out and just did a couple laps, had the racetrack to himself, and now he has brought that number 21 machine back to pit lane. In fact, all 8 cars now, Rob, sit on pit lanes. So with 15 minutes ago, good opportunity for those teams to wrench on those race cars just a little bit. And then as Jake talked about, wouldn't be shocked if we see some single car running here over the last 14 minutes as they've learned quite a bit in terms of what they can do for race setups. Now it's time to trim those cars out and maybe dial in a qualifying setup as we're going to set the grid a little bit later today.
And let's talk about the allotment of Cooper tires that they're allowed to use. They do get that one carryover set from the Gateway Open test that we had a couple of weeks ago. They get 2 fresh sets of Cooper tires. They're going to, of course, have to qualify on a fresh set as well. That fresh set of sticker tires they'll qualify on this afternoon. That is what they will race with tomorrow. So they're essentially going to have one qualifying simulation. They've run this entire, 28 minutes so far on that carryover set. I wouldn't be surprised to see they're obviously all in. They're going to either make a minor change and go out and get a feel for the car, but we're going to start seeing qualifying simulations here, those 2-lap runs to see how these drivers handle rolling on track and getting to work on fresh tires.
Toby Sowery in car number 2, the driver from Cambridge, England, is currently P1. Then it's David Malukas. He's from Chicago, Illinois, in car 79, second fastest right now. Rinus VK is third quick in car 21. He's the driver from the Netherlands that enters this weekend second in points. He needs a big weekend trying to catch Oliver Askew in car 28, who is fourth quick right now. Askew is from Jupiter, Florida. Robert McGinnis, his teammate from Andretti Autosport, is fifth quick right now in car number 27. Robert is from New York. Ryan Norman, the winner from a year ago in car 48. A little surprised to see him struggling just a bit in terms of speed in this practice session. We know, though, he's going to race well in car 48. Norman is from Cleveland, Ohio. And the final 2 car drivers, Dalton Kellett, 7th fastest. Dalton is from Toronto. And then, of course, Lucas Cole, the driver for Belardi Auto Racing from Brazil, 8th fastest right now. And Rob's starting to see some drivers out on the racetrack. Jake Query, it looks like Robert McGinnis making his way through turns 3 and 4 as Lucas Cole heads down the backstretch. So drivers starting to get back out of the racetrack here with just 12 minutes to go in practice.
And I'm sitting in taking a look at that number 48 machine, the 3-cord machine of Ryan Norman, as he sits and waits with those sticker tires. And Rob, you've been around this series a lot. Now, I've mentioned this a lot, but I find it fascinating, and I also find it one where Cooper Tires, I don't think necessarily even gets enough credit. And I'm going to talk about this, and that's the fact, take Rinus VK, for example. He just brought in that 27 machine. He had done some laps on those tires that were scuffed. They brought them out. You can see, certainly, the fact that the tires are a little bit broken in, scuffed, if you will. The thing that I think Cooper Tires has done so well for this series, Rob, and you have seen it really from the genesis, so I wanted you to expand upon it, but that was mastering the trick of coming up with the rubber compound for these drivers that is safe for them, of course. That is the first priority, and gives them good grip when they're stickers. But yet at the same time, because this is a series where you don't make pit stops, ideally speaking, of course, there is still the challenge that needs to be presented to drivers, because it is a learning series of knowing how to deal with a car when the tires start to go away and fall off just a little bit. And there's, of course, a real trick to coming up with a rubber compound that presents a challenge and a learning opportunity for the drivers, but does so while still keeping their safety in mind. And one of the things that I think we've seen in this series is the fact that that absolutely has been mastered, because guys like Oliver Askew will tell you tire strategy and degradation comes into play, but yet they do so when their safety is still paramount.
I think you have to look at really the experience that Cooper Tires and their entire staff has, Jake, because the Cooper Tires, of course, a lot of street tires, off-road tires, but the whole family that surrounds Cooper Tires, including Mickey Thompson, including Avon Tires, which is a high-level competition tire in Europe. We have a lot of engineers that come in as well from Europe, from motorsports backgrounds. And again, it's that, and you brought it up, what do we need for a tire? Do you want a tire that's going to be good at the start? Is it going to fall off at the very end? No, really what we want is a tire that is going to have that sweet spot. There's going to be that area where you're going to be able to put your qualifying time. We want it to be able to fall off later on down the line, but we don't want it to totally fall off so a driver's going to be in trouble, especially on a race on an oval like this. You want to have enough consistency through the entire run of the event. And I think that you talk about Chris Pantani and the crew, all the engineers at Cooper Tire, they've done this now for a number of years, being the primary supporter now of this Road to Indy program, that, you know, the title sponsor and the Road to Indy presented by Cooper Tires. And really what they've done with this product line, they have dialed these tires in, zero issues whatsoever. And it's the tires and how the drivers have to manage them, I think, is what helps guys when they move up to IndyCar.
Rarely, if ever, see a tire failure, too.
Exactly.
I mean, and that's the thing. And these are young drivers. Don't get me wrong. I mean, in the Indy Lights and Indy Pro 2000, what are we looking at age range, Rob? From 22, 23 down to 18 years old in some of these series. So these drivers, they're young, they're learning, they're going to make mistakes in the cockpit. Yeah. The last thing you want to do is to have a variable of where they're not sure what they can do on the tires. And I think you and Jake hit it on the head. Folks at Cooper Tires have done a fantastic job over the years.
And you talk about that age window, and we're talking about young drivers. We got 14, 15-year-old drivers down to USF 2000. Most drivers in Indy Lights, of course, anywhere from 17 to about 22, 23 years of age. age. But again, this is part of that learning curve. I don't care if it's outside the car, dealing with the media, being on the microphone, doing social media. You're learning what you need to learn to be able to go to the NTT IndyCar Series. And just like the new Dallara IL-15 that we, of course, debuted in 2015 has become this great car that is so close to the new Universal Aero Kit car, and it makes it such an easy transition for drivers going from lights to IndyCar. The tires that Cooper has come up with and just the way that they need to be managed, the way they fall off specifically through a long race distance is what helps our drivers be ready for not a full distance in IndyCar, but for one essential stint. That's what we're doing. We're running a stint during our races, not the 4 or 5 stints they run in an IndyCar Series race.
The action on track has picked up as 6 of the 8 drivers, since we had that lull in the action, have made their way out on the racetrack. Malukas and Sowery, the drivers that were sitting 1 and 2, have not gone back out of the racetrack. They might need to, though, Rob, because all of a sudden our points leader has found some speed. In fact, Oliver Askew just now ripped off the fastest lap of this practice session. He's making his way down the back straightaway. That quick lap now at 159.556 miles per hour, and it looks like he is out of the throttle now entering turn 3, going to bring that car back to pit lane. That is a scary sight for the other 7 drivers in the paddock when the guy you got to beat, the guy that's won the last 3 races in Indy Lights, all of a sudden looks like he has quite the hot rod.
And that was obviously a qualifying simulation, 159.556 miles per hour, just a little bit quicker, essentially a 1/10 of a mile per hour quicker than Toby Sowery. Again, how much do you lay the wing back? How much confidence do you have as a driver? Because, during qualifying, you're going to probably lay that wing back a little bit and get a little more air. It'll be interesting to see if any other drivers can find some more pace here before we're all said and done. But yeah, Oliver dropping one down. Confidence, momentum, 2 words we probably use too much, but probably maybe even not enough, because that's what it's about in this program.
6 wins this season in his 2019 Indy Lights campaign presented by Cooper Tires. Swept the weekend at Circuit of the Americas down in Austin, Texas, as American Open Wheel Racing took to that racetrack for the first time. Was just fantastic down there in that weekend. I think that was kind of the statement weekend to let everyone know he's going to be a championship contender throughout the course of the season. The 3rd win of the year came on the oval at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in an absolute thriller where Rob, he made a move out of turn number 4, running down Ryan Norman, got him by inches at the line to score his 3rd win, and then wins 4, 5, and 6 have come in the last 3 races at Toronto and then 2 at Mid-Ohio. It has just been an impressive campaign, very consistent for Oliver Askew. And as we mentioned, the only other oval that we race on was at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, so he's going to come in with a lot of confidence, even though, not a lot translates between Gateway and Indianapolis. The fact that he was so good at Indy is going to be impressive and fun to watch this weekend.
What I really think is interesting is the road to Indy is a lot about opportunity. And you go just over 2 years ago. So let's go back to March of 2017. We're talking, not even 30 months ago. And here's a guy that was making his debut in the USF 2000 program with Cape Motorsports. You fast forward to Mid-Ohio. The first day we're at Mid-Ohio, I'm walking up the paddock and I see Oliver Askew talking to Mike Hall from Chip Ganassi Racing. I take a picture of it. I tweet it out on my Road to Indy Insider, and all of a sudden he's asking me for that picture, and little did we know the IndyCar test is coming up. I see him earlier today, and he's chatting with some guys, Don Rohr and the guys from Schmidt-Peterson Motorsports. All of a sudden, you go from karting in 2016 to winning a championship in 2017, battling hard in Indy Pro last year, and now Oliver Askew's name's being bandied around for potential seats next year. Will he have a scholarship? Will he win the championship and get that scholarship for 3 races? It may be more, because it seems like his stock is very high within the IndyCar paddock.
The 2 HMD Motorsports teammates of Toby Sowery and David Malukas working together as those 2 cars roar down the back straightaway. They've got to find a little bit more speed, because Jake Query, all of a sudden, it's Oliver Askew back to where he has been for much of this season, and that is P1 in timing and scoring.
And Oliver Askew, after coming in and setting that fast lap, Nick, came in, they still made some adjustments to the rear balance of the machine, tightened up some springs. Very quick work on that 28 machine that, by the way, happens to have on it this particular weekend the Bommarito Automotive Group, which is one of the large, of course, automobile dealers here in the St. Louis area and is the title sponsor of this event for the NTT IndyCar Series at this facility. So they have been a fantastic partner, has Bommarito, in terms of the promotion of this weekend, and made it a huge success here in St. Louis. They're on the car of Oliver Askew as that 28 machine goes back out. Slight adjustment made after already setting the fastest lap here in the final 5 minutes now of this session.
Those folks at the Bommarito Automotive Group, they weren't born yesterday. They know they want to hitch a wagon to a driver who's fast. Put your logo on a guy who's won a lot of races. So very cool to see the sponsorship on Oliver Askew's car this weekend.
Well, he's also been driving around the last couple of races with a Bommarito Auto Group car.
Yeah.
So, indeed, let's get a hold of one of the young guns, one of the guys that's moving his way up the ranks and could be a future star of the NTT IndyCar Series. They know what's going on, and I think, you know, Nick will say this for sure, just the simple passion of those guys for John Bommarito and the crew that he brings to races, you know, always a pleasure to see them. And there's just this absolute passion for the sport and what they've been able to do here in the St. Louis area to really get people to rally around this race at Worldwide Technology Raceway. They are the model of partners, sponsor partners that you want in a program.
Love what I heard during the IndyCar session. If you're just joining us, we talked to Jonathan Bommarito, and he said, you know, we asked him when he caught the bug for open wheel racing. It's like, you know, you can watch it on television or you can see clips of it on social media, but until you experience it in person, and I've always said that, man, once you see this stuff up close and personal, it's going to be impossible not to become a fan. So it's really cool, and we hope the folks here in St. Louis in this area that have made their way out to WWT Raceway, whether they're going to do it for the first time this weekend or have been here for the last couple years, or even back to the early days when IndyCar was racing here, we hope you're enjoying it, and hope you're really looking forward to the racing tomorrow here in the St. Louis area. Just 2.5 minutes to go in this practice session. Oliver Askew has reset the fastest lap, now at 159.918 miles per hour. Rob, this is a junior Formula developmental series, but it's hard to say that when you've got drivers out here turning laps at just under 160 miles an hour here in the St. Louis area.
Indeed, exactly that. The amount of talent that we have this year, even though it's a short program, we have such talented drivers. We've got a couple drivers we expect to see back next year. Robert McGinnis will be a driver, could be coming back next year. Hearing rumblings that Toby Sowery and David will be joining David Malukas again next year. Ryan Norman's looking to try to make a move up to IndyCar. So is Renus VK. We could see as many as 3 drivers moving into IndyCar next year, and a lot of great talent coming out as well from Indy Pro 2000. We're going to keep refilling and hopefully get more cars for Indy Lights in 2020.
Boy, Oliver Askew just keeps getting faster as that driver from Jupiter, Florida, sails into turns 3 and 4. He's now at 160.187 miles per hour. His teammate Robert McGinnis has found some speed as well, as Robert McGinnis in car 27, who makes his way into turn number 3. He's found some speed at 159.626. And look at that lap for Oliver Askew, Rob, now at 160.679. That's a full mile an hour faster than the entire field. Our points leader has got himself a good car here on the final seconds and minutes of practice.
If he qualifies on the pole and is able to potentially go win this, he may be putting the nail in the coffin in terms of winning this championship. Qualifying record right now, single lap at 161.354. Juan Pedrojita, 2-lap qualifying run, 160.823.
He's getting close, Rob.
He's actually, that particular lap, if he did 2 of them, would be a new 2-lap qualifying record, 160.823. 160.869 miles per hour, 1.3 mile an hour quicker than Robert McGinnis.
And I'm trying to look. It looks like a lot of the drivers are kind of running in traffic where they can get a tow, but Oliver Askew, as he makes his way into turn number 1, there's nobody out in front of him, Rob. So these are legit laps. And how about a 161 flat as he just continues to knock on the door for that track record?
Oliver Askew, guys, a young pilot, and we can't reiterate enough that if you're an IndyCar fan, following this road to Indy is so important. You get a chance to get up close and personal with the future stars. If you would have been watching USF 2000 a couple of years ago, you would have saw Oliver Askew as a champion in the USF 2000. That's when you want to connect with the driver, because this guy's going places right now.
Yep, good session so far for Andretti Autosport. They've got the top 2 spots. The driver that's not up there with them, Jake, is Ryan Norman as the checkered flag comes out, but certainly Ryan knows the fast way around here at WWT Raceway just inside the St. Louis area.
The defending winner, as a matter of fact, Ryan Norman, where he got his first win, and you were 5th in this particular session and then got out of the car with a couple of minutes left. What did you find in that 48 car? How do you like the setup this year?
You know, I really liked the car this year, really good behind other cars. So a lot of that practice, we were just kind of following other cars and seeing how it handled, because really that's what it comes down to. The race here is a long race, so just really need a good race car. And our Q-Sim was really good. Our 3-lap average was pretty much the best without no tow. So, you know, there's a lot of cars towing out there and things like that. So it's kind of hard to tell where everyone's is, but we're happy with the car. So hopefully tonight we'll put it on the front row.
Goes without saying, Ryan, that this track is special to you because you got the win, but then you followed that up with an impressive showing in terms of finding out and figuring out Portland as well a year ago. Was this kind of the place where things really kind of came together for you?
For sure. You know, it gave me the confidence knowing that I was able to win races and run up front. And after that, really just kept my head down. And, you know, it's been great ever since with win and second place, a couple second places this year. And so we're just keeping this going.
Good luck for a safe weekend.
Thank you.
That's Ryan Norman. Nick?
All right, appreciate it. Here's the rundown of how they ended after practice. Checkered flag is out on this session. It's Askew, McGinnis, VK, the top three. Toby Sowery ended the practice session 4th fastest. David Malukas was 5th. Ryan Norman is 6th. Dalton Kellett is 7th. And Lucas Cole is 8th. And again, these Indy Lights drivers will go qualifying a little bit later this evening at 7:30 Central Time, 8:30 Eastern here on the Advanced Auto Parts IndyCar Radio Network. Rob, busy weekend for you. I know you're going to be running all over the place. You and I are going to be down on pit lane a little bit later for IndyCar qualifying as this day rolls on here at Worldwide Technology Raceway.
I was really interested in what Ryan Norman said there. He's P6 on the charts, but he's very happy with his race car. And for a guy who ran and had to battle with Colton Herta back and forth in traffic, he felt like his car was really good when running behind another car, and that's what it's going to be. Oliver Askew out there by himself, 161 mile per hour flat, great lap, but how good's that car if he's going to be in traffic? Will he be in traffic if you start on the pole position? But to hear Norman say that he was very happy with his 3-lap average run, which means he's going to be good in qualifying, and happy with the car in traffic says a lot about the number 48.
Let's hear from our driver who ends the session in P1, Jake Query. 161 flat for Oliver Askew. He's got all of them covered so far here in practice.
Look, Nick, P1, and when you're that far ahead, you can say P2 also for Oliver Askew. You're supposed to keep this interesting for us, but I'll tell you what, you kind of ran away and hid there in the end of that session. Take me through what you felt in that machine.
Yeah, well, first of all, big thanks to everybody on Enjoy Autosport to get the car ready for this weekend. It's a big weekend for us, 50% extra points. So looking for a good result. And yeah, we put new tires on there at the end. And yeah, the car was on rails. So our balance is really good for the qualifying running. And hopefully we can capitalize on that later on this evening. It's going to be different conditions because we haven't driven in the evening on this track before. So, but I think these guys here have pretty good data from years past, and we've swept the podium here last year, and that's what we're looking to do this year.
You had a test that went well, according to Mike Hull, for the NTT IndyCar Series. You are presumably on the cusp of securing yourself a scholarship. How do you stay focused? How do you not look ahead at this point?
To be honest, I'm not worried about next year at the moment. As long as I do my job the best I can, I think everything else is going to take care of itself. So my main focus right now is to win this championship, and everything else will come after that.
Appreciate the time.
Thank you.
That's Oliver.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you folks are having a good time. Once again, the temperature is starting to rise a little bit. And once again, we urge everyone to stay hydrated here at Worldwide Technology Raceway. Coming up next at 4 o'clock is the Vintage.
It's a gorgeous South Florida morning here at the Palm Beach International. Perfect setting to test out the new Cooper Xeon RS3 G1 tires.
Pretty brave move to put these tires on straight up race cars.
The race truck is the perfect scenario for this particular tire.
All day they were great, super predictable on the breakaway.
The tires, they seem like they have a lot of grip. You'll get a lot of use out of the tires.